My name is Joyce, and the night Julian humiliated me at his family's party was the night I stopped pretending small things did not matter. We had arrived at the estate in late afternoon. Lanterns were already lit along the gravel drive. The house smelled of rosemary and roasted meat. His mother moved through the room like a queen in slow motion, smiling with sharp teeth. His father clapped men on the back and told the same joke he had told every year. The cousins clustered, laughing like they shared some private joke I had not been told. Julian wore a tuxedo that fit him like a promise. He took my arm with the ease of a man who believed he controlled everything. At first the evening went as they always did. Polite toasts, predictable compliments, the hum of other people's lives sliding by. I kept my voice small. I wore a simple dress, a color Julian liked on me. Safe, unremarkable. And I watched him watch them. Halfway through the main course he chose the moment. He stood, glass raised, and offered a toast that sounded warm until the last line. He laughed slow and easy and the guests laughed with him. Then he leaned in as if to share something intimate with the table, and with a soft, precise cruelty he said, loud enough for the corner of the room to hear. You know, Joyce has the strangest habits. She likes to collect old papers. She thinks it's charming. Sometimes she brings home heaps of nonsense and pretends it matters. A ripple of polite chuckles. A cousin made a theatrical face. His sister clucked sympathetically, as if we were watching a quaint animal at the zoo. I felt the color drain from my face while his eyes met mine, calm, practiced, satisfied. The thing about humiliation is how quick it feels. It happens faster than you can gather your dignity. Your spine goes stiff before your mouth finds a word. For a precious second I sat, stunned. Then I stood, because standing felt better than sitting under his amusement. My chair scraped the floor and every small sound in the room seemed to point at me. Julian smiled that same smile and mouthed unapologetic. Play along. Play along. The implication was clear. Be grateful for the crumbs of attention. Be small. Be quiet. I remembered the afternoons we had spent at the kitchen table while he worked late. I remembered the nights I had sat up with the bills and typed cover letters and balanced ledgers to keep our life steady. I remembered the folder I had hidden under our bed. The breath I had held each time I slid it back into the darkness. He thought my papers were nonsense. He thought the truth they contained was nothing more than sentimental clutter. After the toast, the chatter swelled like wind. An aunt touched my elbow, half apologetic, half amused. We all have our quirks, dear, she said in a tone meant to soothe. Julian squeezed my hand like a king owning a subject, not the wife he claimed to love. He leaned in close and said, ignore them. They mean nothing. But they did. The laughter caught in my ears. It settled like small stones inside my chest. All at once I wanted to leave, to go home and tear him down with a quietness so precise he could not rebuild from it. That was the moment a memory pushed forward, bright and terrible. Months earlier, in the bottom drawer of my writing desk, I had found an envelope with a subtle security stamp. The stamp meant something a bank teller knew, an official legal kind of thing. I had opened it with my own hands. Inside were contracts and ledgers, pages with names I did not recognize and numbers that did not belong to our household. Named in thin cursive at the top of one page was a company I thought Julian had bragged about in passing. On another page, shaded margins traced payments to addresses I had never heard him mention. I kept those papers. I did not tell him. I didn't tell anyone. I read them at night under the small lamp, my breath shallow, the pages sharp with a kind of danger. I learned his language on those pages. Accounting tricks, shell names, a ledger entry that made no sense until I realized it was a payoff. I learned he had two lives. The one he showed in smiles and the one he kept on paper. That evening, as cousins murmured and Julian's laughter rolled like distant thunder, a choice rose inside me like a tide. I could bow and pretend their jokes were no more than that. I could keep the papers where they were, buried in linen and denial. Or I could pull them free and let the room smell like paper and truth. I did not make the choice in a fury. I made it in a cold, precise way, the way surgeons choose their instruments. I felt for the folder under the seat cushion. My fingers found the corner of the paper, smooth and hidden. I slid it free and tucked it inside my purse like contraband. The next hour passed like a fine thread pulled taut. We moved from courses to after-dinner coffee. Julian basked in attention while I sat like someone watching a play from the wings. People told stories, their voices soft and loud. I listened. I kept my face careful like a mask. When Julian moved to another group, I rose to pour myself a cup. The coffee was hot. The cup trembled in my hand, but my hands did not betray me. In the corner of the room, under the span of the chandelier, I opened my bag. The paper slid out, white and plain and terrible with restraint. I did not speak then. I did not stand on the table and shout. I let the room keep its gleam. I folded the papers, smoothed them once, and when the moment was right, when 3 people came out to the lawn to admire the moon and Julian turned away long enough, I took one step and I followed them. Outside, the night was a cool wash. I drew a breath and unfolded the first sheet. The paper held a line of numbers and a name Julian had always called a friend. My thumb stroked the ink. And in my bag, hidden beneath the papers, I had printed copies of a single thing he feared most. A signed contract that would blow open everything he had tried to hide. I did not know yet whether I would reveal it then in the moonlight, or wait until a crowd could never ignore it. I only knew one thing. I would not be small anymore. The moonlit lawn smelled like clipped boxwood and spilled champagne. Laughter drifted from the terrace in waves. I kept to the shadows near the hedges, papers pressed flat against my ribs, the way a diver keeps a palm over a knife. I told myself to breathe. I told myself not to run. Through the French doors I could see Julian moving from group to group, the center of his own small galaxy. He had a talent for attention. He served easy charm like cocktails. He knew how to make people feel chosen for a minute, for a night. I used to feel lucky to be the woman at his side. Now I watched him and thought of ink and margins and numbers that did not add up. I eased down the steps to the gravel path that curved toward the side garden. Voices murmured there, low and private. I recognized one instantly, Julian's father, Benjamin. The second voice was their family attorney, Calloway, the man who smiled with his mouth but not his eyes. Monday morning, Calloway was saying, crisp and certain. We file the transfer to the family trust. Your son brings the spousal consent. We'll have the consent notarized by noon. The house and the lake parcel move out of marital reach. Good, Benjamin answered. And the wife? Julian's voice slipped in then, smooth as a blade. Joyce will sign. She falls apart when the room turns on her. I'll bring the pages to breakfast. If she hesitates, we say it's routine. If she refuses, we proceed anyway. The signature can be managed. Silence. Gravel shifted. I pressed back against the hedge, the branches pricking my shoulder blades. Calloway cleared his throat. Do not say that word again, Julian. You're not a fool. You do not forge in a world where phones record. A beat. Then Julian laughed, soft, arrogant. Relax. She will not make me do anything messy. She hates mess. The path tightened under my feet, as if the stones wanted to swallow me. I held the papers harder to stop my hands from shaking. Spousal consent. Family trust. Move out of marital reach. Words meant to sound clean all the way to the knife. I stepped back along the grass, slow, quiet, until their voices turned small. When I reached the hydrangeas, my phone lit in my palm with a vibration I felt in my bones. A voicemail. I tapped the screen. A bright, polite hotel voice spilled into my ear. Hello, Mr. Moreau. Your penthouse suite is confirmed for tonight after 11. The romantic package has been set. We have the rose arrangement and the chilled champagne waiting. We'll welcome Miss Serafina as requested. The world tilted a degree. I stood very still. The air felt cold and exact. I replayed the message once, then twice, as if repetition might change the vowels. It did not. Serafina. I knew the name. I had seen it once on a text thread that Julian swiped away from my line of sight. He had said it was a florist. The lie had been small enough to step over at the time. It was not small now. I moved along the shadow of the house to the library door. The library was empty. The room smelled like leather and varnish. I set the papers on the desk under the lamp and flattened them with both palms. The top sheet was a draft from a shell company, Caravel North, bearing Julian's neat signature. The margins showed transfers to accounts that lived under yet another name, Auburn Gate Holdings. A list of payments from Auburn Gate to consultants followed. One of those payments matched the date of our 5th anniversary. 10,000. Not to me. I took photographs. One by one. Every page. I photographed the email header printed in faint gray at the top. Julian. M. at Caravel North. I photographed the ledger lines where Auburn Gate paid a Sarah L. for creative services. I photographed the line where my name appeared, not as wife but as secondary guarantor, next to a loan I had never touched. My breathing went shallow. I steadied it. I made 3 copies in 3 places: phone, encrypted cloud, a small card inside my wristlet. Eleanor, no, not Eleanor. That was another story, another woman. My own inner voice said the same thing any careful lawyer would say. Evidence dies when it lives in one place. I gave the evidence more than one place to live. On the corner of Julian's desk lay a tidy stack of envelope-sized cards. Place cards. A smaller card with a handwritten note sat on top, tucked half beneath an engraved invitation. After speeches, Lakeview. A lipstick kiss had pressed itself faintly into the paper. The shade was not mine. The door behind me opened. The smell of peonies and expensive perfume drifted in first. Then heels, careful and light. I turned. Serafina did not look like a florist. She looked like a secret someone had decided to wear outside at night. Her dress was pale and intentional. A simple chain at her throat glimmered, delicate and costly. She paused when she saw me. Her expression did not change. She was very good. Looking for the ladies' room? She asked, as if the room were hers. I know where it is, I said. My voice sounded like someone else's, calm, careful, made of glass that would not break. She tilted her head. You must be Joyce. There is a particular humiliation in hearing your name from the mouth of the person your husband is taking to a hotel. It arrives like a small cold hand on the back of your neck. I did not flinch. Her eyes slid to the desk. To the papers. She did not bother to hide the recognition. He should have locked those. He should have, I said. She smiled, quick, professional, cruel by habit rather than intent. He'll make an announcement after dessert. It will sound kind. He is very good at sounding kind. She turned a fraction toward the door. You should prepare. For what? I asked, although I already knew. For a separation crafted to look mutual, she said. His parents love narratives that photograph well. Her phone buzzed. She glanced down, typed something light, and slid the device away. You do not have to make a scene, she added, as if offering me a favor. There are cleaner ways to lose. I looked at the papers on the desk and saw exactly what I needed to see. Not a mess but a map. Not shame but a route out. I do not plan to lose, I said. She watched me for a breath, curious, then left as quietly as she had come. I gathered the pages, slid them into my bag and closed the clasp. In the mirror above the mantel, a woman I recognized only partly looked back at me. Her eyes were clear. Her mouth was steady. She was done living inside other people's pleasant lies. I returned to the party with a calm that felt like armor. The staff carried out little almond cakes with spun sugar on top. The cousins clapped. The band switched to a softer key. Julian's mother tapped a spoon to a glass for quiet, and people turned toward the staircase with practiced smiles. Julian stepped up one stair, glass in hand, looking unbearably sure of himself. Thank you for being here, he said. Family is everything. He let the room give him its attention. Then he pivoted toward me, the kind move first, the knife under it second. Joyce and I have news to share. About a new direction we're taking. The room held its breath. I reached into my bag, found the hard edge of a document sleeve, and wrapped my fingers around it. Before Julian could shape the next sentence, I lifted my phone, hit record and said, clearly enough for the chandelier to hear. Before we talk about your new direction, Julian, let us read the contract with Caravel North and the consent you plan to manage on Monday. The room turned as one. His smile fell a fraction. And for the first time all night, I watched fear move under his skin. The chandelier crystals quivered as if even they could feel the shift in the room. My words cut through Julian's polished toast like a blade through silk. His hand froze mid-gesture, the easy smile fixed on his face but hollow now, eyes darting toward me. Whispers rippled across the table. Cousins leaned forward. His mother stiffened, her knuckles white around her wine glass. Benjamin, his father, pressed his lips together in a thin, warning line, as though silently ordering his son to regain control. Julian chuckled, the sound sharp at the edges. Darling, he said, careful but strained. This isn't the time. We can discuss your concerns later. I did not sit down. My phone still recorded, the red light glowing like a small, steady flame. Later has already come, I answered. You stood here humiliating me in front of everyone. Now let them hear the truth. He stepped down from the stair, voice dropping low. Joyce, don't do this. But I already had. I opened my bag, pulled out a single page, and laid it flat on the table in front of his uncle, who had always prided himself on understanding contracts. The bold header read, Caravel North Holdings. Below it, Julian's signature curved like a snake. His uncle adjusted his glasses, frowned, and read aloud a line that stilled the air. Transfer of assets, contingent on spousal consent. Julian's mother gasped. His father muttered, Not here. But the words were out. The silence that followed was worse than shouting. I gathered the papers quickly, tucking them back into my bag. This was not the final stage, this was only the spark. I needed more than gasps. I needed proof that no one could twist, no whisper could erase. That night, after we left the party in a car so silent it rang in my ears, I began the real work. While Julian sulked, pacing the bedroom, making furious calls in the bathroom, I sat at my desk and pulled out everything I had hidden. The ledger pages, the printed emails, the place card with the lipstick kiss. I laid them out one by one like puzzle pieces. At dawn I began to build a timeline. Payments from Caravel North to Auburn Gate. Entries labeled consultant fees. The hotel voicemail still saved on my phone. I printed call logs and matched dates with transactions. A pattern emerged. Every business trip, every conference, every out-of-town expense lined up with a payment and a text to Serafina. I bought a small safe the next morning. Inside I placed copies of the evidence, along with a flash drive of scanned documents and voice recordings. Then I carried a second copy to my friend Dana, who worked in accounting. Dana was quiet, discreet, and owed me more than one favor. She flipped through the pages, her eyes widening. This isn't just infidelity, she whispered. This is fraud. He's siphoning. See here, double entries. And this line, he's using your name as guarantor on a loan you never signed. Joyce, this could ruin your credit, your whole financial life. Her words lit my spine like fire. Not only betrayal of love, but of trust, of safety. Can you help me prove it? I asked. Dana nodded. I'll trace these, and I'll testify if it comes to that. That same day, I scheduled a meeting with a lawyer. A woman named Harper with a reputation for cutting through arrogance like glass through rope. I handed her the binder I had built, my notes precise. She scanned quickly, then looked up. You've got him, she said. Not just as a cheating husband, as a man committing financial misrepresentation. If he tries to divorce you on his terms, if he tries to corner you in court, this will gut his case. Her confidence steadied me. We drafted statements. We secured affidavits. I documented every word Julian said in those tense days after the party, every late-night call, every slammed door. My journal became another layer of proof, each entry dated and signed. Julian sensed the shift. He grew sharper, more irritable. He started demanding to know where I went during the day. Once he snatched my phone, scrolling for clues, but I had locked every file with codes only I knew. He slammed it down, muttering, Don't play games with me, Joyce. I met his glare evenly. No more games, Julian. Not for me. Because 2 nights later, I found a letter slipped under the door. No envelope. No signature. Just 5 words written in his neat, controlled hand. Stop digging. Or lose everything. My hand shook, but not from fear. I slid the letter into my binder and whispered to myself, Now I know I'm winning. I read the threat twice and then a third time. Stop digging. Or lose everything. The words were neat, centered, careful. I could hear his voice in the spacing. I slipped the note into a plastic sleeve, labeled it by date, and placed it in the binder. Fear wanted a seat at my table. I did not offer it a chair. I called Dana first. She opened her door with a look that said she had not slept either. On her dining table sat my papers, now joined by color-coded tabs and a legal pad dense with arrows. I traced the flows, she said. Caravel North pushes money to Auburn Gate. Auburn Gate pays consultants. Some of those payments loop back into accounts you can reach with a spousal signature. He is moving funds with your shadow. She slid a printout across to me. The pattern was merciless. Dates. Amounts. Notes. A lattice of deceit that looked almost elegant from far away and ugly up close. What do I lose if he moves faster? I asked. She held my gaze. Credit. Access. Options. But you are early. That matters. At Harper's office, I laid the updated binder on her desk. She leafed through the additions with that dry focus lawyers use when they see leverage forming. When she reached the hotel voicemail transcript, she made a small mark with her pen and nodded. Here is our frame, she said. 1. Marital waste. 2. Fraud and misrepresentation. 3. Coercion attempt through a trust and espousal consent. 4. Infidelity as corroboration of motive. We document, we notify, and we make it impossible for him to claim ignorance. She drew a square on her pad and divided it into 4. We will do this cleanly. Cleanly, I repeated. The word tasted like relief. Harper's plan was simple on paper and hard in the body. First, we secured everything. She filed a notice with the banks flagging my signature as high risk for coercion. Any new consent from Joyce Moreau would trigger a call to her office. She arranged a credit freeze. She filed a letter to Caravel North's registered agent requesting preservation of documents. They will not like it, she said, but they will keep it. Companies fear spoliation. Second, we built witnesses. Dana prepared a sworn statement. The hotel manager, when asked for a simple confirmation of the voicemail, produced a time-stamped log. Harper recorded my own narrative in a calm room with a glass of water on the table, so that if I shook, the facts would not. She had me sign every page. Judges like neat, she said. Give them neat. Third, we prepared the reveal. Not the party scene, not a wild confrontation. Something harder to escape. The Family Foundation's quarterly reception was in 10 days. Donors. Board members. A speech Julian had been polishing for weeks about transparency and stewardship. Harper's eyebrows lifted when I told her. Perfect, she said, and the word did not feel cruel. There will be a board packet. There will be a lectern. There will be microphones. We will not ambush. We will request the floor properly. We will give the board a sealed envelope with copies. We will let procedure do the cutting. I breathed easier for the first time in days. Procedure sounded like a boat on steady water. I also told one more person. My sister May. She lived 2 towns over and did not love the Moreau parties or their polite cruelties. When I showed her the ledger lines, she went very still. He is not just careless, she said. He is intentional. I need you there, I said. Not to speak. To stand. I will stand, she said. The days filled themselves. I worked in quiet hours and left no scraps. I charted the board and its committees. I learned the bylaws. I practiced my lines in short sentences that air could carry without breaking. Dana taught me how to explain the flows in simple terms. Money leaves here, I would say, tracing a finger. Money appears here. The link is this signature. At home, Julian oscillated. Charmed then cold. A bouquet of white flowers one morning. A slammed door the next. You are making this ugly. He told me over coffee, his smile tight. There is a graceful path. There is a lawful path, I said. He laughed without humor. Law follows power, Joyce. Do not forget that. But power had already begun to shift. 2 small things told me so. A cousin who had snickered at the party sent a text that read, "Are you okay?" Julian's mother called and used a voice that pretended to soothe. Let us not embarrass the family, she said. No matter what you think you know. Think you know. The phrase moved something sharp in me. I did not argue. I thanked her for her concern and wrote the date and time in my journal. Harper built the packet with a craft that felt like carpentry. Tab 1 Timeline. Tab 2 Documents. Tab 3 Sworn Statements. Tab 4 My Brief. On the cover, she placed a single sentence. Presented to the board of the Moreau Family Foundation in the interest of fiduciary duty. We ran contingencies. If Julian tried to block me at the door, we would deliver the packet to the chair and to outside counsel. If he tried to seize the envelope, we had 3 more. If the microphone cut, we had written remarks. If he smiled and tried to glide through it, we had the hotel log and the ledger and my name printed as guarantor on a loan I never saw. May stayed with me the night before. We made tea and did not speak much. She sat on the sofa knitting a long gray scarf. The sound of the needles soothed the house. I pressed the packet edges, feeling for any roughness. They were clean. At dawn, I stood at the mirror and practiced the first 10 seconds. No anger. No apology. Facts placed carefully in the air. Good evening, Madam Chair. Thank you for recognizing me. I rise as a spouse and as a donor. I have documents the board is obligated to see. Harper met us outside the venue. She wore a navy suit and flats built for standing. Dana slipped in through a side door with the financial exhibits. The chair nodded when Harper introduced me, polite and firm. 3 minutes, she said. You will be heard after the treasurer's report. I took my seat in the third row. The room hummed with donor talk and careful laughter. Julian stood near the stage, perfect posture, perfect tie. A man preparing to perform virtue. He scanned the crowd and found me. Something uncertain flickered in his eyes. He looked away first. The treasurer droned through numbers. The chair thanked him. She glanced at her list. Before the president's remarks, she said, a brief item from a member of our donor family. Mrs. Joyce Moreau, you have the floor. I stood. My knees did not shake. I turned not to Julian but to the board. Thank you, Madam Chair. My voice carried without strain. I will be concise. I present evidence of undisclosed transfers, related party payments, and a planned movement of property out of marital reach contingent on my coerced consent. The documents are in sealed packets before you. Please turn to tab 2. The rustle of paper was like wind in a stand of trees. Heads bent. Eyes sharpened. A whisper ran down the table. The chair's pen paused midair. Julian took one step toward the lectern, then stopped. The stage lights made his face bright and flat. I lifted my final page. And one more item, I said. A hotel confirmation for tonight, under his own name, with a guest whose payments are listed in your ledgers as creative services. A sharp electronic chime cut the air. The chair's tablet lit with a new message. Her eyes widened, then narrowed. She looked up at me and said, Mrs. Moreau, please remain where you are. Behind the stage curtain, a security guard hurried toward the wings. Julian's phone vibrated on the lectern, hard enough to dance. And in the second row, Calloway rose from his seat and whispered, not to Julian but to the chair. The foundation meeting was supposed to be his stage. Instead, it became my line in the sand. When I left that night, packet delivered, silence following me like a drum. I knew I had crossed into open battle. Julian tried the charm first. At home he greeted me with roses, a candlelit dinner, and the smooth voice of the man I had once trusted. You've made your point, he said softly. We don't need to tear the family apart. Let's talk this through. But I was done being softened by roses. I slid his latest note across the table, stop digging, or lose everything. His smile faltered. That was a misunderstanding, he said. I only replied, it's evidence. From then on, I built the counterplan as Harper had taught me. Steady, lawful, impossible to twist. Step 1. Secure the evidence. Dana and I created duplicates of every file. A binder for Harper. A flash drive stored in May's sewing basket. Cloud backups under coded names. If Julian burned the house down, the truth would still survive. Step 2. Lock the finances. Harper filed for temporary protective orders, freezing accounts he might drain. She flagged my credit so no loan could be opened in my name without a call to her office. Julian discovered it the next morning when a transaction failed. His fury rattled the kitchen walls, but he could not undo it. Step 3. Prepare the allies. May agreed to testify about what she had overheard at the party. His father's talk of trusts, Calloway's instructions. Dana completed her sworn affidavit, attaching spreadsheets that traced the funds with accountant's precision. Harper built the case file like bricks laid one by one, until the wall around me stood tall. Julian's tactics grew desperate. He oscillated between apologies and threats. One night he leaned close, whispering, if you destroy me, you destroy yourself. Think of the family. Think of what you'll be left with. I met his eyes. I'm thinking of exactly that. He stopped sleeping at home. Rumors spread that he stayed in the city, in the same penthouse the hotel voicemail had described. When he did appear, he slammed doors, shouted about betrayal, and swore I would regret shaming him in front of the board. Each outburst I wrote in my journal, dated, signed, documented. More evidence. Meanwhile, Harper scheduled the next move. A formal petition. We don't wait for him to strike, she told me. We file first. Divorce on grounds of marital waste and fraud. That way he fights uphill from the start. I signed the papers with steady hands. The morning they were filed, Julian stormed into the house like a man possessed. He held the petition aloft, his voice a snarl. You think you've beaten me? You don't know who I am. I have friends, Joyce. Friends who won't let you win. I didn't flinch. Then bring them. I have the truth. Because that night when I returned from Maze, I found the back door ajar. On the kitchen table lay a single envelope. Inside was a photograph of me taken through the living room window while I worked at my desk. On the back, in his familiar handwriting, were 3 words. Time is running. The photograph shook me more than I wanted to admit. His threats had always been words on paper, notes under doors, messages designed to frighten. But this was different. Someone had stood outside my home, watching me through the window, waiting until I bent over my desk. The idea of his eyes, or someone else's, pressed against the glass made my skin crawl. I called Harper immediately. She answered on the second ring. When I told her about the photo, her voice sharpened. That's escalation. We report it now. If he is stalking, we create a record. Within an hour, the sheriff's deputy walked through my kitchen, bagged the envelope, and wrote down every detail. This is no longer just a domestic matter, he said firmly. This is harassment. Keep your lights on. Call us if you see him again. Still, I could not shake the feeling that something worse was coming. Harper warned me that men like Julian, once cornered, often pivot. He may abandon charm. He may abandon threats. He may attempt spectacle. Be ready. She was right. 2 nights later, the Moreau family hosted a charity gala at a downtown hotel. It was supposed to be Julian's chance to repair his image after the foundation meeting. I debated whether to attend, but Harper insisted. If he tries to twist the narrative publicly, you need to be there to counter it. Silence at this stage is dangerous. So I went. May came with me, steady at my side. Dana sat 2 tables back with her husband, a quiet presence. Harper waited near the front, binder in her lap, her eyes sharp. The ballroom glittered with chandeliers, the tables dressed in silver. Julian looked immaculate in his tuxedo, moving between guests, shaking hands, performing ease. If not for the tension in his jaw, no one would guess the chaos under his skin. When the band quieted and the microphone hummed to life, he strode to the stage. His smile was broad, his voice smooth. Tonight we celebrate family, commitment, and the values that hold us together. He paused, letting the words settle. Then his eyes found mine. But sometimes those values are threatened from within. The crowd shifted, sensing drama. Julian raised a sheaf of papers. My wife, Joyce, has been spreading false accusations. She has taken private documents, twisted them, and used them to damage not only me but this family's reputation. Tonight I set the record straight. Gasps, whispers, the sound of glasses clinking nervously. He turned toward the projector screen behind him. It flickered on, displaying grainy images, photographs of me leaving Harper's office, of me handing Dana a folder, even one of May carrying a binder to her car. He had hired someone to follow me. This, Julian declared, is the truth. My wife is conspiring with outsiders to seize what is not hers. She has fabricated evidence, and I will not allow it. My chest tightened, but Harper touched my elbow, whispering, "Stay calm. This is good." He overplayed. Still, the sting of exposure burned. The photos made me look like the conspirator he wanted to paint me as. Heads turned, eyes narrowed. His mother dabbed her lips with a napkin, looking triumphant. I stood slowly, my chair scraping the floor. My voice carried steady. "Julian, if you want the truth, let us read your own handwriting. Let us listen to your own voice. Or shall I play the recording where you tell your father you'll manage my signature?" The crowd hushed instantly. Julian's face froze, caught between fury and fear. Because just then, the ballroom doors opened, and 2 deputies stepped inside. They walked straight to the stage, badges gleaming, eyes fixed on Julian. The sheriff himself followed, holding a warrant. Mr. Moreau, he called, voice cutting through the silence. We need to speak with you about financial misconduct and harassment complaints. The room erupted. Julian's perfect night had just collapsed in front of everyone he wanted to impress. The sheriff's words shattered the room's fragile glamour. Guests whispered, clutched their pearls and twisted in their chairs for a better view. The screen behind Julian still glowed with his photographs of me, but no one was looking at them anymore. Every eye was on him. Julian forced a laugh, holding his glass high as if to wave away the intrusion. There must be some mistake, he said, his voice tight. I'm in the middle of a speech. This is hardly the place. But the deputies kept walking. One stepped onto the stage, hand brushing the cuff of his holster. The sheriff stayed firm at the floor, voice steady. Mr. Moreau, we have a warrant to seize documents tied to financial transfers. You'll need to come with us. Gasps rippled through the crowd. His mother rose from her seat, her voice shrill. This is outrageous. He is the president of this foundation. I felt Harper's hand on my shoulder. Now, Joyce, she whispered. I rose. My knees did not shake. I walked to the edge of the stage, binder clutched close, and when Julian's eyes found mine, I saw fear crack through his polished mask. You wanted truth, I said, loud enough for the chandeliers to catch. Here it is. I opened the binder and pulled out the first page, the contract with Caravel North. The projector operator, uncertain, switched feeds when Harper handed him a flash drive. Suddenly, the contract filled the screen, Julian's signature bright under the lights. This, I said, is the document where he tried to move marital property into a trust, contingent on my coerced consent. Murmurs rolled across the room. One board member muttered, fiduciary breach. Another shook his head, disgust clear. I turned the page. Here is the ledger from Auburn Gate Holdings, showing payments to a woman labeled as a consultant. The same woman booked under his name at a hotel suite. And here, I lifted my phone and pressed play. His voice spilled from the speakers, recorded crisp. She'll sign. If not, I'll contest it when she's gone. Either way, I'll get it all. The sound silenced every whisper. Even the band in the corner set their instruments down. Julian froze, color draining from his face. That is not me, he barked, but his voice cracked. It's doctored. Lies. Harper stepped forward, calm as ice. We have sworn affidavits from 2 independent witnesses. We have notarized statements. We have chain of custody. Everything will stand in court. The deputies looked at Julian. His hands curled into fists, but there was nowhere to go. His father sat rigid, staring down at the tablecloth, shame etched into his jaw. His mother's protests had faded into silence. I closed the binder and let my voice carry one last time. You tried to make me small. You tried to erase me, to steal not only what was mine but what we built together. Tonight everyone sees who you are. You cannot charm this away. You cannot threaten it into silence. The truth is written in your own hand. As just then Julian snapped. He shoved the deputy's arm, sending a glass crashing to the floor. Gasps rose as he shouted, "This isn't over. She'll regret this." But the sheriff stepped forward, handcuffs ready. And for the first time, Julian looked less like a man in control and more like a cornered animal. His empire collapsing in front of the very people he had once commanded. The sound of shattered glass still echoed when the deputies closed in on Julian. His rage flared, wild and uncontained. But he had nowhere left to run. The sheriff himself stepped forward, cuffs in hand. "That's enough," he said flatly. "You're under arrest for harassment, with additional charges pending review." The ballroom erupted. Some guests gasped, others whispered furiously, and a few slipped out as if distance might protect them from scandal. The board members looked at one another, their polished masks cracking. Donors shifted uncomfortably, clutching their coats. Julian's mother cried out, her voice piercing. "You cannot do this. He is a Moreau. This family has built half this city." But the deputies were unmoved. One took Julian's arm, the other gathered the papers he had brandished against me. The screen behind him still glowed with his failed smear campaign, my photographs out of context, but no one cared anymore. Their eyes were on the man who had once seemed untouchable, now shackled under the chandelier. I stood frozen, binder pressed to my chest. Harper's hand steadied me. Breathe, she whispered. This is his downfall, not yours. Guests began turning to me, their expressions shifting from curiosity to something else. Respect, even sympathy. Dana rose from her table and moved closer, her presence a quiet reminder that I was not alone. May stood straight-backed beside me, chin lifted. The sheriff addressed the room, voice firm. This matter will proceed through proper legal channels. We ask that no one interfere. Evidence is secured. His eyes flicked toward me, a silent acknowledgement that my work had made this possible. As Julian was led out, he twisted once more, eyes locking on mine. You'll regret this, Joyce, he spat. The words rang hollow, desperate. For the first time they did not land. They bounced off the armor I had built with every document, every ally, every careful step. When the doors closed behind him, silence fell heavy. Then came the reactions. His father stood abruptly, muttering something about damage control, and left through a side exit. His mother sat rigid, hands shaking, eyes staring at nothing. Cousins whispered in frantic tones, already imagining the headlines. And then, slowly, the donors began to murmur to one another, not about me but about him. I can't believe it, one said. All this time. Another shook her head. She stood there with proof. He had nothing but bluster. The chair of the board, composed but pale, rose from her seat. Ladies and gentlemen, she said firmly, this evening's event is adjourned. We will reconvene privately to address the implications. Her eyes turned to me. Mrs. Moreau, thank you for your courage. I nodded, my throat tight. Harper leaned close. You understand what just happened? I swallowed hard. Yes. He wanted a stage. And it became his undoing. On the way out, a few guests stopped me. A woman pressed my hand. You were brave. A man in a tailored suit said softly. He underestimated you. That was his mistake. Their words landed like balm on old wounds. Outside, the night air was cold and clean. The sound of traffic filled the silence the ballroom had left behind. Dana caught up with us, slipping her arm through mine. He thought you would crumble, she said. Instead you stood. That's what everyone will remember. But as we reached May's car, a shadow detached itself from the edge of the parking lot. A figure lingered near the lamppost, face hidden beneath a hood. For a moment my heart stopped. Then the figure lifted a phone, snapped a photograph of me, and disappeared into the dark. I realized then that Julian's fall in the ballroom was not the end. His allies were still watching, and the war was not quite over. The next morning the story was everywhere. The local paper ran a front-page headline. Prominent businessman arrested at Gala. The photo showed Julian's face caught in the glare of a camera flash, his jaw tight as deputies led him away in cuffs. On the radio, a host spoke in measured tones. Sources confirm financial misconduct allegations may extend to shell companies connected to the Moreau family. Witness testimony and documents will determine the scope. I sat at my kitchen table, coffee cooling beside me, and listened as my private war became public news. May scrolled through her phone, her brow furrowed. Everyone's talking about it, she said. Some defend him, but most they're shocked. They say you exposed what no one else could. Dana arrived not long after, binder under her arm. Reporters are calling me already, she said, her eyes bright. They want to know what we found. Don't worry, I didn't say a word. But the pressure is on him now, not you. The sheriff phoned before noon. We've logged everything, he told me. The photograph left on your table, the threats, the financial records. With the affidavit from Ms. Grant, he meant Dana. And the recordings, the case is solid. He won't slip out of this one. But even with his words steady, I felt the tremor of unease. Because the shadow in the parking lot still haunted me, the unseen watcher with the phone. Julian might have been in custody, but influence like his never vanished overnight. By afternoon, the Moreau family was scrambling. His father issued a statement to the press, vague and defensive. We believe these accusations are exaggerated. The truth will emerge. But even his words sounded brittle. His mother stayed silent, retreating behind drawn curtains. Cousins deleted social media posts that once praised Julian's leadership. The family fortress was crumbling stone by stone. Meanwhile, my phone buzzed with messages I never expected. Women I barely knew, neighbors, acquaintances, even one of Julian's former colleagues. sent quiet notes of support. You were brave. I wish I had done what you did. He always acted untouchable. Thank you for proving he isn't. That evening, Harper visited with updates. The court has frozen his accounts pending investigation, she said. And the board has suspended him as president of the foundation. He has no power base left. It will get uglier before it ends, but he cannot hide. I stared out the window at the fading light. And what about me? Harper's expression softened. You're no longer the shadow in his story. You're the one who wrote the ending. Still, I couldn't shake the sense that a final storm was gathering. I remembered his words at the gala, "This isn't over. She'll regret this." The deputies had silenced him for now, but I knew pride could burn hotter than reason. Because as night fell and I finally let myself rest, my phone lit with an unknown number. I almost ignored it, until I saw the single message it carried. 5 words typed with brutal simplicity. He will find a way. My breath caught. Julian might be locked away, but his reach was not yet severed. The battle was nearly won, but the war demanded one last strike. The text glowed on my screen like a small fire. He will find a way. For a moment my hand hovered, torn between fear and fury. But then I remembered the binder on my desk, the sworn statements, the judge's filings, the sheriff's steady voice. Julian's reach was shrinking by the day, his allies scattering like leaves in a storm. He might try, but he would not succeed. The following week, the formal hearing began. Cameras lined the courthouse steps. Reporters pressed microphones forward, and the Moreau name, once spoken with reverence, was now coated in scandal. Inside, Harper stood tall at my side, May behind me, Dana clutching her own file of exhibits. Across the aisle, Julian looked thinner, restless, his eyes darting. He had lost the shine of certainty. The judge listened carefully as Harper laid out the case. The forged trust documents, the coercion attempt, the hotel confirmations, the financial misrepresentation. Dana explained the money trail with clear, patient words. May recounted what she overheard on the garden path that night. And then I spoke. Calmly, steadily, describing the threats, the notes, the photograph through my window. My voice did not shake. Julian tried to interrupt, tried to paint me as hysterical, manipulative, vengeful. But the judge silenced him each time. The evidence was overwhelming. At last, the gavel fell. Protective orders granted, marital property secured, accounts untouchable, and charges of harassment upheld. Walking out of the courtroom, I felt something release inside me, like chains unclasping. Julian had wanted me small, voiceless, replaceable. Instead, I had stood before a room of strangers and spoken the truth with my own name. That was my victory. The aftermath rippled quickly. The foundation board removed him permanently. Donors issued statements condemning his behavior. The city that once applauded his charm now whispered about his downfall. Even his parents withdrew into silence, their legacy now stained by his greed. And through it all, I walked upright, binder still in hand. Not as a weapon now, but as a reminder of what truth can do. At home, I placed the binder back in its drawer. This time not with trembling but with peace. May hugged me tight before returning to her town. Dana smiled with quiet pride. Harper clasped my hand and said, "This is not just survival, Joyce. This is justice." She was right. I stood at the window that evening, the sun lowering over the lake. The glass reflected not the frightened woman I once was, but someone stronger, someone who had chosen truth over silence. Julian had thought I would bend. He had thought he could erase me with humiliation. Instead, I had shown him and everyone that dignity cannot be stolen when you refuse to give it away. This is my story. A woman dismissed, mocked, humiliated in public by the man who vowed to love her. A man who thought arrogance was stronger than loyalty, and deceit stronger than truth. But the evidence spoke louder than his charm. And in the end, his own lies destroyed him. If you have ever been underestimated, if someone has tried to strip you of your worth, remember this. Silence is not the only option. Patience, preparation, and truth are weapons sharper than rage. Revenge does not need to be reckless. It can be lawful, steady, and final. I am Joyce Moreau. My husband humiliated me at his family's party. I revealed the documents he feared most. And when the lights were brightest, he lost everything. If you want more stories where betrayal meets justice, where truth defeats arrogance, Then stay with me. Subscribe, share, and join me again. Because revenge, when written in truth, is unforgettable.